I know that there are some questions, maybe some desires to look at not bidding this out, having the grant pay for the materials only, and having your own individual crews do the road work. That makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways because it does allow you to get more bang for the buck, allows possibly more roads or longer quantities of the roads that you already have. But there are some ins and outs of that, and that's what I want to present you with so that you'll have a good picture of what will happen if you change it at this point. Right now, it's certainly an option to change it, and if you are looking at changing it, now is the time to consider doing that. As I said, we do have until December of 2014 to finish this. One of the things that is very, very important to understand about doing your own work is that you will strictly have to make sure that your guys and y'all are on top of following what the engineer plan has. So if the engineer has planned to go 2,000 linear feet down a road, 2,000 by 16 feet down a road, and you go down and, well, there's one more house that's only 50 feet down, and you add that into it, you're at risk of losing the funds because the state will come in, and they have done this, and will say, well, you went beyond the scope. We only had an environmental to this level here, and even though it made sense, you had the rock sitting right there ready to go, you had leftover rock, why not take it on down the road a little ways? That would be a serious violation in the eyes of the state, and they would come in and say, we can't pay you for this project.
What do? You go back over the same road?
That's exactly, you either have to amend it at that point and ask for an amendment to do an additional work, which brings out another environmental reviewer. And this is a common concern because it only makes sense for us in the real world to say, let's utilize the rock that we have here. Hopefully the engineering is going to be such that there's going to be a limited amount of leftover, and hopefully no situation of not enough. But that is something that is very, very sticky in this grant. It's also very important that any road that, again, same scenario, you have rock left over, and here's this short little road right here that you didn't have originally in there. Well, it only makes sense, let's take care of that road. Again, that's something that you cannot do without...
Let me ask you a question. On the scope of the project itself, we've got to find parameters on the road work that needs to be done. If those were met under the conditions of the county,
Yes.
and completed, and the stockpile material was maintained until after the program was completed, we'd be in compliance at that point, right?
You would be in compliance as long as and this kind of gets into a gray area, as long as you're not, there's not a significant amount of material left over. If you have just, and please don't ask me to determine what a quantity of non-significant is, but basically the state wants to make sure that there's not any padding of materials or anything, and they'll come out and they'll monitor it and at the end of this project and make sure that there's not a lot left over. So going forward, if you decided that yes, that this is indeed what we want to do, we want to make the change. There's a couple of concerns that I have that are a little gray area. Right now, if you don't make the change and you bid it out, and we get a contractor, and let's say we open bids and we have $200,000 left over, it comes in under budget. And again, this is for a turnkey project. At that moment, we're able to stop, go ahead and continue with the project as it is, but we have 60 days from that moment that y'all award those bids to put in an amendment to spend the rest of the funds. Okay? We're kind of in a gray area when we're making this change because we will be bidding out rock material, not the actual work itself, So it's not quite as clean cut of what is actually going to be done and if there's going to be any money left over or rock left over in the end. The state has, especially the General Land Office, has a pretty good history of coming in and saying, okay, we see you have money left over, we're sweeping it right now, not just the county, but statewide. And they will do that. So my only, not my only concern, but one of my concerns is in changing this, if we do find a quantity that is under budget or something of that nature, that we could lose opportunities to possibly use the funds for something else, whether there's a sheltering need that might qualify that we could use funds for or whatever. Again, they may come in over budget. This isn't an issue. We don't know, but it is something that's come up quite often. But let's say that you do want to go forward and change the project. We have two options of how we do that. And by the way, I've talked to the state quite a bit about this, and they're aware of what suggestions I've made and the ins and outs, and they agree with me and with everything I'm going to say here. So we can go forward, just keep moving forward at this moment, and have the engineer only prepare it so that he's bidding out the materials only and y'all are doing the work. We leave only the roads that are currently in the performance statement and their quantities, and we go ahead and move forward, get that rock, get y'all out there doing it. Again, we're still looking in the August, September range. And then once we have a very clear picture of how much money is going to be left over based on bids of rock that have come in and what the climate is at that time, then go in and prepare the amendment to do more roads. And what that does is that lets you go ahead and get something on the ground as opposed to stopping right now. Let's estimate, have the engineer estimate what the new budget would be, how many roads you're going to be able to do. Y'all pick roads or extended existing roads and what have you. Then everything's going to stop. And it's going to stop for a long time. Basically, I estimate that it would be an additional 6 months that would be stopped. So that would put us into, well, winter of next year, or end of this year, first part of next year. It may not be quite that long, but you won't be in the good weather. And it's just a little bit further delay.
So I'm confused a little bit.
Okay.
Are you suggesting that through this amendment, that the county conduct the road repairs within the county precincts and then come back for an amendment if any funds are made available? Or are you saying that the general contractor has been given this scope of work and then, because I'm sure the GC won't have any money left over.
No. What we're talking about specifically are the dollar amounts that is allocated in your contract. And so, and believe me, so y'all keep stopping me like this because this is very confusing. I understand.
Can I give a suggestion? Because we had this. Remember on the generator grant, we had 1.8 million, whatever it was, and everything came in way under. We had 300,000 extra, and so we found a couple more projects that we added in.
So we could have.
So yes, at that point you do. That's how it goes. So you don't know until it's bid.
And we did add a few extra projects in, and at the same time, the state came in shortly after that and did a sweep and took a chunk of money away as well. And so that is my concern that I have with breaking away from the traditional bid out process, because it's going to be a little fuzzier on what we have. So let me go back to your question. And I'm not going to propose anything. I'm going to give you all the ins and outs of it because I don't know what's best for your county, because I can clearly see how doing more roads appears to be best. But I can also understand that the ins and outs of these grants don't necessarily make that as easy. So what I'm saying is that if you go forward with the intent of not having a contractor do it, but the actual county forces do the work. We keep moving forward. We open the bids on the material only, which would probably be somewhere in August. Okay, then we know a good idea how much money is left over. Then the engineer will design, work with y'all to find out what additional roads or lengths you want. And then at that time, we do the amendment. So there are two choices: doing the amendment right now, okay, to change it to your work. And again, this is only, if you're not going to change it to the county forces doing the work, there's no amendment required at this time.
But you're also not including, and I think the assumption is that you're including it, that you said materials only, but you've got equipment, utilization, and you've got labor involved as well.
That's correct.
Not the county forces.
Now, that's going to get in my understanding from the conversations I've had, and I've had quite a few with many different people,